All right, good morning. Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and in this video we are going to build the Zippered Clutch wallet that we just came out with. Here's one right here. For people that watch our Monday night videos on Facebook, you'll recognize the tooling. I did this over a couple of weeks in the Monday night videos showing folks how to tool it and paint it. And then luckily it fit this clutch wallet pretty well because I think it looks pretty good on there. But anyway, so this is a little bit more complicated of a build. Sorry, Janie's been using this one. It is a little bit more complicated of a build. There's a little bit more to it, but as your skills grow, then also your challenges should grow, and that's how your skills will continue to grow. So let's kind of look at what's in here right quick. It opens up just that far. It's got gussets top and bottom here. It has two large pockets right there and right there. And then it's got 4 card slots on each side, which granted, some people stuff tons of cards in those and stretch them out to where they hold a lot more than just 4 cards. And then it's got a zippered coin pouch in the middle. So far I've made 2 of these and they both turned out really, really nice. Well, when I say 2, I mean 2 successful ones after, 2 or 3 terrible prototypes. Anyway, and we put out the template for it. We put it in the mystery box this month, and we're leaving for Sheridan in less than 24 hours. So I needed to get this video out there because I know there's a lot of folks excited to make one of these. So yeah, let's kind of dive into it. I'm going to move the camera down to where you can see the desk and not my pretty face there. The template set has quite a few pieces to it, 7 total. That's the back piece right there. I've already cut all these out. I'm going to have to kind of save some time on this video, unfortunately, since we're going to be, I've got to get this thing done by about noon. It's Mother's Day, and I need to get home to Janie. So there is the gusset right there. You cut out 2 of those. It says it on each piece what to cut out and out of what thickness. So this is piece 7 of 7. Cut 2, which are 2 to 3 ounce. Let's see here. One of the card pockets, cut 2 out of 2 to 3 ounce leather. There they are. Another card pocket, cut 2 out of 2 to 3 ounce. There it is. This is the large pockets, cut 2 out of 2 to 3 ounce. There they are. Here is the zippered coin purse from the middle, and we cut 1 of these out of 2 to 3 ounce. And then this right here, I call it the butterfly. It very loosely resembles a butterfly. But this piece is the interior lining is what it's labeled on here. We cut 1 out of 2 to 3 ounce. So all of the interior pieces, like every other wallet we've made in our videos, have been made out of 2 to 3 ounce leather. And then this back piece here was cut out of 4 to 5 ounce leather. All of this leather is English bridle from Wicked Craig that we sell on our website. It is absolutely my favorite leather to make wallet linings out of. This one, I worked on a nice tooled back for it, but I didn't finish it in time. It's back there in the refrigerator. It'll wait for me to come back from Sheridan. But anyway, I didn't have time to finish the tooling, so I'm just going to make it out of this nice English bridle. Love this leather. It's already finished. It doesn't need any kind of a sealant or anything like that on it. It's a great leather. Then just for a little bit of variation, I'm doing the interior out of the chestnut color and the exterior out of tan. I think that'll look really nice. So let's get to it. You need to go ahead and these card pocket pieces here, we want to go ahead and bevel and burnish all of these pieces on the tops. All right, let me get all these templates out of the way here since I'm technically done with them. I will use this one for a measuring device later on. All right. So we're going to bevel and burnish the top of these 2 pieces right here. the tops of these two pieces right here, the tops of these two pieces right here, and then the tops of these two pieces right here. All right. And then also, this is your zippered coin purse. You'll want to burnish that area where the zipper will be too, just so that'll look nice and finished. I'm going to I'll grab my little Ron's #1 Montana Edger here, and I'll do one on camera, and then I'm going to pause it and do all the rest of them. I love this little #1. It just barely takes a tiny bit off. I mean, this leather's pretty thin. You're not trying to do a lot. You just want to take that hard edge off of it is all you're doing. All right. I'm gonna grab me some of the indelible burnishing solution that we've been playing with here lately. And I need to find me a little soft piece of cloth somewhere. I see one. Give me a second. All right. So all I'm going to do is get a little bit of this. I'm just going to use my finger. Just a little dab will do. I'm going to wipe it on that edge without dropping my tool on the ground. I'm going to wipe that little dab right along the edge there. Give it a couple of seconds, and then I'm just going to kind of wipe on it with this this piece of soft cloth. And the secret to using the indelible burnishing solution is you only go in one direction when you're doing your burnishing. It's not really a friction thing. It's more of a laying the fibers down type thing. Stuff works really, really well, but it doesn't work like other burnishing solutions, which work off of friction. So wipe off the excess there so I don't make too much of a mess. All right, and then I'm just going to take and wipe this thing real gently. You don't have to apply a bunch of pressure. Again, it's not a friction-based product. And then after 10 or 15 wipes here, I'll have a nice little smooth edge. Stuff works really, really nice, especially on this thin stuff, because when you try to rub hard on it, you just kind of crush up the leather sometimes. Or maybe that's just me and my Hulk hands. But anyway, there's one. I'm going to go ahead and burnish all the rest of these right quick, and I will unpause the video, and we will continue on. All right. So we burnished all those edges. All those top edges is all we needed to do. And I'm going to take all the card pocket pieces and set them to the side for now, because what we want to work on first, or what I want to work on first, is the zippered centerpiece here. Okay, so here I have a zipper. I think this one's, what, 9 inches long? Yep, 9 inches long. It's always okay to have a zipper that's too big. It's once you have a zipper that's too small, that's a problem. So when I put this zipper in here, though, I'm going to put it in just like this, where the stops, the stops of the zipper are right up here at the closing end, and the back of it's just kind of hanging out the side here. And once I sew it in, I'm just going to trim that whole end off because it won't matter. We'll just sew it in. I'm going to use some of our double-sided sticky tape to stick the zipper to the back of the leather. And, of course, I don't have a roll of it sitting on my desk, so I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about my disorganization. I had my whole weekend planned out, and then yesterday I had a little accident in the back there and crushed my hand pretty good and had to shut down operations for the day. Anyway. Nothing was broken, so that's good. So I'm going to take some double-sided tape. All right, this is the back side of my zippered piece. And I just want a piece just long enough to cover that slot. Just like that. And I put it, right up on the edge, because there's not a lot of room for error with the width of the zipper versus the width of that hole. All right. I'll take another piece here, cut it about the same length. And I'll put it on the back. Now, I'm going to go ahead, before I put that zipper on there, I'll measure out my stitch spacing and everything while this thing can lay flat, because once the zipper's on there, it doesn't lay as flat, and it's not as easy to do that. So I'll get me some little wing dividers here. These are CS Osborne wing dividers. This is the 6-inch variation. I really like them. They're really nice. They're very, very heavy as far as, you know, the quality of them and everything. So, all right, so I'm going to pretty much make this almost as narrow as possible. And I'm just going to run that sucker around that inside hole to include the ovals at the end here. All right, so there is my stitch line. Now, I have a new stitch marker made by the guy that makes a lot of our tools for us, and I absolutely love almost everything about it. That being said, he's making some changes for me, so we're going to call this one a prototype, but I'm going to use it today regardless. It's a very, very, very well-made stitch marker. This one's about 8 stitches per inch or so, which is what I usually use on all my wallets and things like that. What I don't like about this one is how he, I don't think that the stitch wheel is close enough to the guide. I can't get real narrow, close-up stitch lines with it, so he's changing some things. So I just kind of hang it out, and I don't use the guide itself. I just use the line that I drew, and I run it along there. And I'm going to mark my holes with it. I'm not using pricking irons today because, like I said, I hurt my hand yesterday and I cannot swing a mallet. It hurts like hell. So, sorry. This is actually going to take me longer because of this, but I also don't do a lot of videos anymore using stitch markers and an awl, so it's kind of time to go back to basics on that type of stuff too anyway, because I don't want to lose my skills on being able to do that. I've said it a million times. I really enjoy hand stitching. That being said, you know, when I was doing custom work for a living and I had to get a piece out the door so I could make the next piece, hand stitching was kind of the enemy. So anyway, it's just one of those time versus ability type things. And then, of course, some people just don't have a sewing machine or, you know, aren't ready to purchase one, and that's fully understandable. But again, it just depends on the volume you're trying to get out the door, because it's fine to not have one, you know, as long as you're not trying to move three large pieces a day or something. All right, so I'm going to take the tape off the back of this. I'm going to straighten this zipper out as much as I can here. This one's a little bit wanky. So I straightened it out a little bit here. And I'm going to take the paper off of the back of the double-sided tape. And when I lay the piece of leather over the zipper, I want to get it as straight as I can. I don't want that zipper to look like a snake in the slot here. I want it to just be as nice and straight as possible. And even. It needs to be even on both sides. And I'm not doing a good job. All right, so that'll have to do right there. So I am going to go around and I will stitch all that up right there using a 0.8 millimeter thread and my John James harness needles. All right, but first, of course, I have to poke those holes. They're not gonna poke themselves. So I have this is a Berry King awl. This is the large handle, and this one is the size number 1 blade. Absolutely my favorite combination for the 8 stitches per inch. For anybody that hasn't used the diamond shaped blade, all blade before, it does go in at an angle. It's not supposed to just line up straight with each other because then your stitches will look more like cuts. The all blades or the all handles that we sell, Barry makes completely round ones, and then he makes some that have a flat spot in them. I like the flat spot for 2 reasons. One, that's not going to roll off the desk and hurt my foot or break my blade. 2, I orientate my blade in the handle so that that flat spot, when it's right on my palm right here, it's in the perfect angle to make my stitches. Took me a long time to figure that out, so hopefully that little tidbit helps somebody else, and they can run with that. And you know, if you already have an awl and it's round, you can always sand the side of it flat if you want to. But it sure does make it easy to orientate. I don't have to look at the blade and turn it in my hand. If that's against my palm, we're ready to go. So I'm going to go through here and start poking some holes. The hand sewing books will tell you that, you know, sit at your stitching horse, poke a hole, sew it. Sit at your, poke a hole, sew it, poke a hole, sew it. I am a traditionalist, but sometimes I've said it before, the same thing doesn't work for everybody, and that doesn't work for me. So I've got my little piece of rubber matting under here, and I'm going along, and I will poke all my holes, and then I will sit down at my horse, and I will sew this thing up. So you watched me poke a bunch of holes there. Now I'm going to pause the video. I'll continue poking the holes. When I come back, this will be stitched together. Okay, so got that nice and sewn down. Clip my threads here. Now, as I said, now we've got all this zipper just hanging out off the back side here. I'm just going to take it and trim it off to where it's not in the stitch line. This zipper has a nylon teeth to it, so it's okay to use my good scissors here. If it had metal teeth, I'd be a lot more careful when trimming it. So there it is. It zips. So the next thing we're going to do, we need to fold this thing in half and glue it to itself. Get it out here where you can see it. I'm going to use our contact cement for this. If you've never used contact cement, I highly suggest you get a little jar one day and try it out. Far superior to the white glue that a lot of people start out with. I started out with it too. It took some talking before somebody got me to try contact cement. But once I did, I never looked back. So just putting this on here, spreading it along the edge, just a 1/4 inch or so. And I probably should have put a piece of paper down first because I am getting it on my little cutting surface here. So I'll have to rub that off once it gets about half dry. Contact cement, you put it on both sides and then seal the thing to itself, and that's how it works. One of the best things about contact cement is you get it all the way out to the edge, and then later you can sand that edge, and if you burnish it right, it will look like it's just one piece of leather. You won't see the separation of the two pieces. Other glues, you won't get that kind of bond. Set that to the side for a second, and I'm going to peel this off my desk right quick. Next thing we have to do is we have to take the 2 gussets, these right here, and we need to fold them in half to find their center point. Okay, so we're going to fold them, create a nice little crease there. Okay, now we have those centers. This glue's sat long enough. This our contact cement doesn't really take that long to set up, so it's ready to fold over and glue back to itself. I'm going to go ahead and trim these ends of the other ends of the zipper, just so that they're not caught in my my seam. That way I'll have a cleaner seam when I sew it all together. There we go. So take it, fold it in half. Usually I'll start at the corners, and that'll help me kind of find my way and keep it straight. And I'll just pinch all that down. And then I'm going to use my squeaky toy and kind of push that together real nicely. To ensure that it gets a really good bond. All right, got me a little piece of sandpaper here. This is 320 grit. No, it's not. This is too fine. Got me a nice little piece of sandpaper here. It's 320 grit. And I'm just going to hand sand these edges just a little bit to make sure any glue that I might have gotten on it comes off. And then I'm going to bevel and burnish these edges right quick as well. Especially the corners, you want to sand them down to where they kind of match up real nice, just to make sure. All right, I am going to use that same little edger, just the little number 1. I don't have to take a lot off. I just want to take the corners off. Kind of round it up a little bit. The previous couple of these I made, I didn't do this with, but we're also going to make a small wrist lanyard for this. I think that'll really add to the elegance of it, and then kind of the attractiveness too. It'll be removable, so it could, be stuffed down in a purse, or it could just be carried as its own little purse. So yeah, I think that'll help its attractiveness to a customer, especially. It just gives it one more feature that someone might really like. If they don't like carrying a lot of stuff, or if they go to a lot of places where they don't want to carry a bunch of stuff. Anyway, all right. So now I'll take these, and I'm going to put them like so. All right. I'm going to glue them in place, and I just I do it about 1/4 of an inch from the top there. I just kind of eyeball it. It's not hard to get them even on both sides. And we're going to end up gluing them in place there, and then we're going to stitch all 3 sides of what's left here. Okay, and then that'll get your gusset sewn to your zipper piece. All right. So gonna just kind of mark with my fingernail where this thing sets, so that I can put my glue line on there without getting glue in places that that it would show later. And then also I did forget to burnish that edge right quick, so I'll go ahead and do that too. I want to burnish that edge before I glue this to it, so that I can burnish all the way around without having gaps in my burnishing, and it will look better. So I'm going to burnish this in the exact same manner I did the others. I'll pause the video right quick. I always try to keep it to where you're not watching me do the same thing over and over. So here we go. All right, got that done. Now again, I'm going to put some glue. I'll put it on both sides of the edge of this, just even less than 1/4 of an inch in. I just want a little bit on there, and then I'm going to put it right down the center of the inside of this, and I'll just apply them to each other, and then we'll sew these 3 sides down. So. Little dab will do. We don't need a ton of it. We're just holding it in place while we while we sew. That's all we're really doing here. And again, pay attention to your little fingernail marks so that you don't get glue past where you wanted to put that piece. Then you don't have a big mess to clean up later. Nobody likes cleaning up messes. All right. I'll just set this on top of my spool of thread so that glue doesn't get on the table as I glue up this other little piece here. There we go. We'll let that set for a second. I'll go ahead and pause the video, roughly just a minute, and then I'm going to stick those pieces to it. All right, that glue is set up well enough. I'm just going to take these and I'm going to press them onto the ends. Make sure and seat it all the way down in that seam, that fold that you created. And I'll kind of pinch them down a little bit. Same on the other side. All right, once again, I'll take my little rolling toy and I'll create a really nice crease there. Get that folded down nicely and stuck on there real good so that I can sew it well. All right, now, once again, we're gonna create our stitch line. This one's gonna be, you need it far enough in that when you do these sides that you're making sure that you're actually sewing this thing to the actual zippered pouch. You don't want to get it so close to the edge that you're just barely missing the zippered pouch. So, not quite a 1/4 of an inch, but you know, you gotta get it in there. And I go ahead and I do another stitch over the top of this piece up there. And when I sew it, I'll actually have my stitch go over the top of this, and it'll look really nice and handmade and all that. But I'll do these sides here. Like I said, they're going to be a little bit wider at almost a 1/4 of an inch. And then I'll do this this bottom area here. And I'll just set me up a little ruler to keep it straight. It doesn't have to be as wide in. This one can be much closer to the edge. All right, so there you have it. All my stitches are marked and everything. I'm just going to go along and I'm going to poke all my holes, and then I'm going to just hand sew all 3 sides of this. And again, I'm going to start up here, and I'll have the top thread will actually go over the top of this, and that'll create a real nice little accent. And then just go down and around, back up, and then when you go to splice it, once again, I'll go over the top here, and then I'll backstitch my 2 or 3 stitches to hold my stitching in. So I'll pause the video. When I come back, we'll be done with the gusset piece. Real quick little side note, these wings that are coming off of this, you're not trying to sew those down because those will fold back like that, and then they'll be sewn to the main body of the clutch. So if you need to, bend them back and out of the way as you poke your holes and then sew down along the bottom there. Okay, same for the other side. If you happen to get them that low. Mine aren't quite that low, so it's not a problem, but the last one I made, they were a little bit lower. Okay, so we have the gusset piece finished. All right, so we are done with it for now. We're going to set it to the side. Here in a little bit, we'll fold these little wings back and get it ready to sew to the main body once the main body's ready. But we don't really have to worry about that right now. like that. So there's something I totally forgot to mention, and I feel terrible about it, but you need to build yourself a little mold. You can make it out of cardboard or whatever. This is the one I made. I just glued a few pieces of acrylic together. The measurements of this little mold, you use the butterfly piece. All right, the mold is basically the exact same as 1/2 of it, minus that center portion there. So it's the same as, I guess, one side of it. All right. So that makes it roughly 7.5 inches long by 3 5/8 inches tall. And then it's about 1/2 inch thick. Okay. And what we'll do is once the inside is built, we'll wrap it around this and clamp it to it, and we'll use it to help us glue our zipper to the outside of the piece. So that'll come in handy here in a little bit. I'm sorry I forgot to mention it, but I meant to mention it in the very first of the video so that people could get working on it before it gets to the point that we need it. So I apologize that I have failed you in that manner. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start building the interior. So we will need all of our little card pockets. So we need the 2 that look like T's. We need the 2 that are short and the 2 that are tall, and we'll put this away for just a few more minutes. So I told you that earlier I said we would use this as kind of a measuring device. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry. We need to skive a little bit. All right. Skiving is scary. I get it. It's not easy. But it'll help these pockets, which will be stacked on top of each other like this. It'll help them to lay nice and flat if you don't have that ridge under there where that second piece of leather is. So we're just going to do a little bit of skiving to get rid of that edge. Some people would use like a straight French edger. You can use a skiving knife. There's a billion different ones on the market. We sell a pretty good one. I am not the master of skiving by any means. I'm decent at it, but right this very minute, I'm a little out of practice. But let's see what we got here. So here is a small skiving knife. I use it with the bevel side down. And just going to take it, get a bigger piece of plastic to put this on. I don't like doing it over my cutting board because I end up cutting up my cutting board pretty bad. You're supposed to do it over glass, but I don't have a piece of glass, but I got tons of acrylic. So all you do is, a lot of people think you got to take this knife and put it on the edge like that and go along, and that's not going to be, that's not going to work very well, I promise. But what the proper way, the easier way is to take it and just slide it along, and it's going to cut it just so slightly, and then you go back and do it again. So it creates a nice little cut that the next time you go along, it'll fit back into that cut and take it a little bit further. I'll do one on the camera, and then I will do one off the camera because it could take a couple of minutes to get all the way through. I go nice and slow because if I get in a hurry, I'll end up just ruining the piece and doing it again. So steady as she goes. And, if you're not very great at skiving and everything, I mean, the object is always to take it down to a feathered edge, but any amount of skiving is going to be better than nothing. So there you go. All right, and then I always have a hard time with the very first part up here. So I usually just go the other way with it. that. Now we're almost through it. Not my best skive I've ever done, but I'm not going to be mad about it because I didn't cut the leather up, which is sometimes you'll get too deep and you'll actually end up cutting, you know, the surface of your leather, and that's not cool. So again, that wasn't my cleanest work, but it'll do. Okay, and then it helps too to do these little edges here. They're a little bit more difficult because you do have to kind of do what I just said, you know, is not the best way to do it, and skive it downward like that. I'm sure there's a way to do it better than this, but this is what I know to do on these small areas like this, where it starts up there and doesn't have room to maneuver out. And again, any amount of skiving is better than nothing. So try your hand at it and don't be afraid of it. See what you can do. All right, so again, I'm going to pause the camera and I'll do the other one. And then when we come back, we'll start assembling the card pocket pieces. All right, on the other one, I used a straight French edger, and I got a pretty decent skive out of it. I have a whole set of Ron's French edgers, and they're really nice. My problem is I just don't use French edgers very much, so I thought I'd play with it some. All right, now we're going to start assembling the card pockets. Let me put some of these blades up so I don't cut myself. So the first thing we have to do, we're going to start with our what I'll call the base piece, the bigger piece here. All right, and then I told you I was going to use this as a measuring device. I'm going to put it up here where the bottoms of the T part here are right against the top of that piece. Okay, and then I'm just going to simply lay this down directly below it. And that is where it needs to be positioned. All right, now I need a scratch awl, which I failed to bring over here with me. So give me 2 seconds. Since I made my shop apron, I actually know where that piece is at all times, or this tool is at all times, and so that makes it quicker. So the scratch awl, I'm just going to go along and scratch right along the bottom of this thing because I'm going to have to glue and sew the bottom of it down. All right, so all I did is create just a little bit of a scratch of a line on there. You can see it. And then I need to do the exact same thing on the other piece. Now I'm going to keep the original pieces with each other just in case any of them might have been miscut by a 1/2 millimeter or something crazy. Again, I'll line up the bottoms of the T part to the top of that piece. Make sure it's nice and straight, hold it really still, and then I'll lay the other piece up against it. And then I'll take my scratch awl and I'll mark the bottom of that again. All right, now back to glue. What we're going to do is just barely put a little bit of glue along the bottom of this and just above that little line that we scratched. Okay, just a little bit, because these are kind of some these are designed for a card to go almost all the way down to the bottom of them, probably 3/16 up from the bottom. So if you glue too much, then the card won't seat all the way down. Okay, so we'll get a little bit of glue. And again, we're just barely, the glue is just to tack that piece down while it's being sewn. So that's why we're not worried about getting too much of it on there. Grab a piece of paper here so I quit making a mess with my glue. And I'm just going to run it, most of this glue is actually ending up on this paper, and I'm just barely running it along the bottom of that card slot. And then I'll do the exact same thing on the other little T, keeping in mind which one goes on which piece, just in case. All right, now, while those set, I will put some glue on these. Again, the line that we scribed on there, we're going to glue just above that line. So let me turn it over so I can see the line better. And just run a straight little line of glue right along that. I say straight, that's not very straight. And just a little dab will do. We don't need a lot of glue by any means. We're not trying to get crazy with it. Clean up any of it that might have gotten too low there. And do the same on the other piece. All right, a little dab will do. And then we will come back. This one goes with that one. We're going to set that on there and just make sure that the sides of it line up and that the bottom of it lines up with our line there to keep it all nice and straight. Tack it down. Just like that. All right. I'll just use me a little straight edge and my my stitcher again, or my stitch marker. I'm going to roll it along there, and we're going to sew that piece to it. Again, I'm getting the stitch line pretty much right at the bottom, just enough that it'll have structural integrity. You can see how low the stitches are on that. And we'll sew that together. So again, I'll pause the video, and when I come back, these two will be sewn down, and we'll go to the next pocket. Okay, so I got the pieces sewn down. All right, the next step we have to do is take the next piece and put over it. So that that more narrow card holder we'll take, and we're gonna butt it up, the tops of it right underneath that T part of this one. Okay, and we're gonna butt it up there, and then we're gonna glue around. We'll glue from under the T part here all the way down and around to the other side in the same place, and we'll do that to both pieces. Okay, so once again, we will not have a wide glue line here. We're not trying to make it to where the cards won't fit in, but we do need to glue it down. And then once we're done gluing it down, we're going to find a center line here, and we're going to sew up the middle to separate the 2 card pockets, or well, I guess the 4. So yeah, so we'll get out our glue here. We can go ahead and just put it on all 3 sides of this, put it on the back sides of the 2 little T pieces here, and then we'll put it all along these 3 sides up to the top of where that T is. Okay, don't go all the way up, because then again you'll have glue to clean up, and nobody likes that. So again, a little dab will do. We're not trying to permanently cement this thing down by any means. We're just holding it so that we can sew it. Get my paper here. Just like a while ago, most of this glue is actually ending up on this paper and not on the piece, and that is just fine with me. I'd rather waste 3 drops of glue than glue my card pockets to the point that they won't accept a card. So there's that one. We'll set it aside to be ready. Glue up the next one here. There we go. Now, I'm going to glue from underneath the T here all the way down. Push this closer to the camera and stand up here. I'll glue it from under the T all the way down and around, and then I'll put a tiny bit of glue on the back of the edge of the T also, and that will help hold everything together while we start construction. Got it a little high there. On the backs of the T's. And there we go. I can seal my glue jar closed. Well, I don't know that I got it high enough on this side. Another little drop there. All right. So there we go. Move that fresh one out of the way and get the one I just did a second ago. It's ready to go. All right, so the first thing I'll do is just push the edges of the T's down, just straight across, all right? And once those are held down well, then I will take this other piece, very important to butt it up against the bottom of the T. If you don't, then your card pocket won't set straight and it won't look right because there will be a big gap between those two pieces. And that's not good. So gluing all that down, take my squeaky toy and get a good bond here. Same on the other piece. Push that down. All right. There we go. Now, I need to find the centers of these so that I can scribe me a little line for stitching so that I can separate the card pockets. For anybody that doesn't have one of our centering rulers, you can always take the measurement of it, divide by 2, find the middle, blah, blah, blah. I like my centering rulers because they're quick, easy, and efficient. So, let's see here. Both the edges are marked out at about 3 3/4. So where the 0 is my center. Make me a little line here, just a tiny little mark. Come up here and do the exact same thing. And then I'll line up those two dots and just scribe me a quick little line down that, and we'll go over it with the stitch wheel here in a minute. I'm pretty good at math, but the centering ruler sure does make it more fast and definitely more accurate when I'm not on my game with my my division. So measure it there. Measure it there. All right, so again, I'm going to take my overstitch wheel. I'm going to mark these two sew lines, and I'm just going to sew these pieces together as is. Just sewing them right up the center there. And then I'll just do one final stitch right above the top of that top card pocket there. And it'll look nice. So when I unpause the video, those two will be done. All right, so there we go. It's all sewn together now. And there's what the back should look like. And both of them are done. So now we get our butterfly piece. This piece right here. Okay. And this piece is going to go on top of it. And it doesn't go, even though it's got rounded corners like that, it doesn't go quite all the way down to where the rounded corners are on the butterfly piece. It actually sets up just a little bit higher, say 1/4 of an inch off of, put a ruler on here so it's easier to see. It can set about 1/4 of an inch off of where that rounded piece is on the butterfly piece. All right, but before I do that, I want to quickly sand and burnish that bottom edge right there, just so it's nice and finished looking. You know, we've talked in all of our videos about every little detail matters, and even though that's a very difficult detail to see by anybody that's staring down into the wallet, it's still a detail that should not be overlooked. So I'm going to grab my sandpaper here. Where's the piece I was using? And I'll sand down that little piece. And then when I use my edge beveler, I'm just going to bevel the top, because the back of it actually should sit kind of flat against the base of the butterfly piece. So there's my little rounder edger, or Montana edger. Run it right along the bottom, and then just a little bit around that corner there. And then these sides we'll burnish when we burnish the entire interior together here in a little bit. And again, I'm only going to round off this top side. I don't care about the back side at this time because I want it to lay flat up against the piece that it's going to glue to. So this one has just a tiny bit of separation here from either misalignment or miscutting. Not a problem at all. I'm just going to trim a teeny bit off of it right quick. Because again, every little detail matters. All right. So, gonna burnish those right quick and glue them into the spot that I just told you about, and then I'll be back. All right, as I was edging that, I kind of thought maybe I didn't explain it well enough, and I'd rather over-explain it than under-explain it. So, again, I put these about 1/4 of an inch from that spot right there. And then I just went down with my scratch awl and marked a little line there. Did that on both sides so that I could glue these down. And where I'm going to glue I need to mark the tops of these too onto the butterfly piece so that I don't get my glue too high again. So what I'll glue is all 3 sides of the back of this piece, and then 3 sides right here, staying above that little scratch line that we did right there. And I'll do it on this side, and then I'll do it to this piece over here as well. And then the only sewing that we'll do on these 2 pieces right now is that we're going to sew down along those bottom corners and that bottom edge there. The sides will be sewn with the complete assembly of putting the back on and the zipper in. So that's why we're only sewing right now from around these corners and around the bottom here. And that's all. So when I come back, those will be glued in and sewn in, and we'll start the final assembly of the zipper in the back. Alrighty. That's all nice and sewn together now. We're now ready to use the mold that we had to make. Again, you can make it out of layers of cardboard or something like that. If you're using cardboard, I would use something dense like cereal box or poster board, something like that, and just stack up a bunch of layers. Anyway, it's time to use this thing. And all you're going to do is put it inside this interior piece here, and I've got a big clamp over there that I use to hold stuff still, and I'm just going to clamp it down. Let me grab my clamp. All right, just a couple of spring-loaded clamps. I think these were like $1.50 wherever I got them. They weren't very expensive. I don't use them on finished sides of stuff because they're pretty strong and they do leave a lot of marks. But on the unfinished side, who gives a dang? This will be in the middle of the in between the layers of the clutch, so it'll be all right. All right. So it clamps in there, and it should fit just perfectly if you made it the right size. And again, what that's going to help us do is take our zipper and glue it to the outsides of the thingy. So, all right. I'm just making sure I'm in the right spot here. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Nope, I skipped a step. I knew I would. All right, I want to go ahead and trim this off nice and flush and sand it nice and flush and do a little bit of burnishing work before I put the zipper on, just so that it'll look a lot nicer and cleaner inside there. So, yeah. Anything that's uneven, I'll just use my scalpel and trim it and sand it right quick and do some quick burnishing. Unfortunately, we're still going to have to put the gusset in there, but so we can't burnish it all together, but it is a lot easier to put sew that gusset in at the very last, because then you can keep this thing open, of course, and do what you need with it. So when I say I'm going to burnish it, I'm not going to round these edges. I'm just going to lightly use my burnishing solution and just kind of clean them up and make them look nice after I sand them some. So again, sanding will help get rid of any glue and stuff like that. All right. I went ahead and grabbed a dauber to keep doing this burnishing solution. It's a lot easier to use them and control than my finger is, and I don't get the excess anywhere. I'm just putting this right along the edge only. This indelible burnishing solution. Let me bring that camera up a little but I keep raising everything up, or it's out of the camera view. The indelible burnishing solution works really well if you can leave it on there for just a couple of minutes, and or I don't know, maybe a minute, I guess. Anyway, it kind of works itself into the fibers of the leather, and just makes it, you'll have a nice outcome. Let's really smooth this up and make it look a lot cleaner to do this. So. All right. Now, I'll clamp it back on there. Now the zipper, again, it's as long as it's long enough to go all the way around 3 sides and maybe halfway around the 4th side, then it's long enough. It doesn't have to be a specific, exactly the same as the circumference of this this piece or anything like that. It just needs to, because we're going to trim it off just like we have been. This is one of the jacket zippers that we sell here at Maker's Leather Supply. I make sure that the project, is good for it, and that it's wide enough for it to fold over and glue down here. And then, yeah. So what we need to do is we're going to start the zipper. It'll be right there at this back corner here, okay? And it doesn't matter, this thing's ambidextrous, so it could be this way or that way, but it needs to start back here in this back corner. There's the binding right there, and it needs to start right there just short of the binding. And we'll glue these 2 tabs, the tabs on the end of the zipper, the 2 where the fabric is. We'll glue those to the binding, all right? And we'll end up just kind of walking the zipper around and folding the edges of it down and gluing to the project, trying to keep the zipper as in the middle as we can. So once again, so it's not like a snake going down and being all wavy around your project, because that won't look clean and professional. So that means I need to take glue and put it all the way around the circumference of this thing. And then I need to take it and put it along the back edge of the zipper itself, of the zipper ribbon, it's called. All right, so I'm going to glue those up right quick. I could use double-sided tape, and it would work, but I'm going to use glue, because when hand sewing, sometimes you can get a little bit gummy with the double-sided tape, and it just can be a little bit more annoying to sew through. So, all right, I know everything is in the way here, but I'm just going to go along, and on the outside 1/4 inch or so of this zipper, I'm putting glue. It'll, if you're using contact cement, it'll work just fine on the back side of that zipper. It won't seep through to the point that it won't stick or something. I once again failed to put a piece of paper down first, so I'm going to have some glue to wipe off my cutting surface as usual. Never think of these things until it's too late. And don't get it too far onto the ribbon to the point that you're going to have to try to clean it out of the ribbon. All right, there's one side. Now I'll just flip it around and do it again. This zipper is 24 inches long, and I did like 20 inches of it. I think we only need like 16 inches or so. I'll let you know what's left once we trim it off here in a little bit. But I'd rather glue more of it than not enough of it. And again, we're gluing right now, we're gluing the outside or the inside, the bottom side of the zipper, not the top side. All right, set that zipper aside right quick. Wonder if I can balance it on all these dye bottles back here. Rub the glue off my cutting surface before it gets too dry to do that. Don't spend near as much on all these cutting surfaces if I don't let the glue dry on them. All right. And now we'll just go around the perimeter of this thing, and we don't really have to be that clean. I'm going to really get it on there good. I don't want to get it on my mold because I don't want to accidentally glue my mold to it. It's okay if it's a little bit, if it comes out from under the zipper, because we're actually going to glue this whole thing to the back later. So might as well just get some glue on there. When it comes to the spine, I'm actually going to put a good bit of glue on the spine because that's where the rest of the zipper is going to lay. And I want to make sure that it adheres well. You don't have to have these big clamps like what I have here. I've used big binder clamps and all kinds of other stuff to hold all this together. These are just the ones I have hanging on my bench over there, so that's what I grabbed. Scoot this one over just a little bit so I can get some more of this glue onto the binding here. All right. Now this is the most tedious part of this whole thing, is putting this zipper on, okay? But it can be done, and it can be done well, and it can be done easily. You just have to go slow and do it. Glue off again. Sorry, got a message. Hopefully my time off isn't. All right. So I'm going to start by putting the end of the zipper kind of right there in the corner. Let me stand this thing up on its end. That might help. Putting the end of the zipper right on the end. And I'm just going to wrap it around the mold and glue it down to the leather. There it should be. If you used a thicker leather on the pockets and stuff, then you're gonna have a hard time getting the zipper down over the edges of it. So yeah, try to use the 2 to 3 ounce that's recommended, or make your mold more narrow. I know it's kind of late for me to say that to some people right now, and I apologize for that, but it just now made me think of it while I'm squeezing her down on here. I am currently not pushing down on the corners because we'll try to do those as gracefully as we can. It's pretty difficult to do the corners and get them to lay real nice and flat. I am not an expert at it, but I do okay. All right, I'm going to take this one off so that I can pull this zipper down right here. And then I'll put it back on, nice and tight up against there. All right. Squeeze the zipper down good. Okay, so to do the corners, again, I didn't push them down on the corners. I'm going to take my little pokey thing here, and I'm going to just keep splitting the middles. And I'm going to push it down right there, and I'm going to push it down right there. You're going to get some bubbling, and it's going to be hard to overcome, but you can get it all down if you work at it. Okay, I did that one. Now I'm going to do this one. All right, there should be. Nice and glued down. Now I need to glue down this very end piece here. I do need to apply some more glue to that tab right there, and then I'll unzip this just a little bit to do that so that I can get it in there nice and flat. So. All right. I need to let that glue set for a second. It's not sticking just yet. I'll do the same up here. I'll put more glue on the edge of this zipper. Well, it doesn't look like it really needs it. And I'm going to trim off the end of that zipper there. Wonder how many times I can say zipper today. I'm going to use my scissors here to trim this zipper, and I'm going to be very, very careful when I get to the teeth not to try to cut through a tooth of this zipper. It'll ruin those scissors pretty quick. So there we go. Now I shall put a tiny dab of glue on the end of that so that I can get it to lay nice and snug in there. I'll go ahead and lay that first piece in up here that I was telling you about, now that it's nice and tacky. All right, I'm going to set this aside for a minute, and we're going to talk about the back piece. The outside, what you'll see of the wallet if it's not open. Okay. So I have cut mine out of 4 to 5 ounce English bridle. Again, I had a really nice tooled piece that's not finished, but needed to get this video done before we leave for Sheridan. I'm going to take it and I'm going to stitch groove it, and then I will use my stitching wheel and mark all my holes. And I'm going to go ahead and punch a hole and be ready to... we have to invent a little piece so that we can put the wrist strap on it. We haven't done anything to do with that yet. We're going to use this tiny little swivel set. I got this from Joann's for like $3, I think. It's just a tiny little snap. I forget what these are called. Well, small swivel hook and D-ring. It's a little 1/2 inch set. It's nothing, big and crazy by any means. The D-ring part will go on the clutch so that it doesn't have the big snap hanging off of it when the wristlet is not attached. So first I need to stitch groove around this. This is the Berry King Stitch Groover, highly recommended. We do sell this at Maker's Leather Supply. It's a great, great little tool. Far superior to the other ones I've seen. It's always hard to go around corners with these things, though, when they're rounded. Okay, so, when you're looking at this, the wide side is what folds in half. So I'm going to want to put my little wristlet attachment kind of right there. All right. But again, I'm not going to do that until after I put some stitching into it and everything. I do need to go ahead and punch the hole for it. Because once this thing's folded over that, I'll have a very difficult time punching that hole. I won't have as much of a hard time just putting a rivet in it. That won't be hard at all. So let me grab my little rotary punch. The size of hole depends on what kind of rivet you're going to use. To be perfectly honest, we could just sew the daggum thing into it with everything else. As a matter of fact, you know what? That's just what I'm going to do. So we'll sew it in. So I need to cut a little 1/2 inch wide strip out of the same leather that I made this out of. Use my magic ruler here. That's why we have these grid lines on this thing, so that we can measure things like this. Grab my scalpel. There we go. Go ahead and open this package up and make sure it's a true 1/2 inch. Just because it says it is doesn't mean it really is. We all know that it was made in a country that doesn't use inches. There we go. Fits in there real nice. We'll cut another strip here in a little bit to make the actual hand, the wristlet part out of, but this is just going to be the part that holds the D-ring on, like that. So yeah, now I just need to cut off a little slice of this. It doesn't take much, and we'll sew it into the binding. I'll cut it about 1 inch, and I bet we'll trim it later. All right. I'm also going to just go ahead and knock off those sharp corners real quick. Just barely cutting them at an angle so that they're not sharp corners. And we will burnish this tiny little thing. Done. All right. So what I want to do is find the center here so I'll know where to glue that thing on. I'll just make a little mark with my fingernail. Put some glue on the inside of this. And I will also put some on this. There we go. That'll hold her nice and snug. Give that glue a second to set up. While I go back over here, remember I glued this and then didn't push it down yet. Zipper seems to be holding on nice, so I'm going to take all this off, take the clamps off. And I will carefully unzip this thing so that I can pull my mold out. Be very careful with it. Try not to rip your zipper back off your project, because then you got to do it all again after you clean all the glue off. So the easiest way is just kind of flip that zipper off a little bit and slide your mold out. Actually, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Leave your mold in, because we still got to put the outside piece to the inside piece, and the mold will help. Sorry. Again, I've only made a couple of these, so I'm still not completely fluent on it yet. All right. This thing's set up enough that we can squeeze it on there. I'm just holding it by the D-ring, and I'll fold it and get it ready to go. And there she be. It is ready. Now, I am going to take my overstitch wheel and go ahead and mark my stitch holes on this. It's much easier to do it while it's flat than it is to do once you've got it put on the main body there. Okay. Just following along in my stitch groove. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and punch the holes through just this area right here, just because it looks like it might be a lot easier to do down here than once it's wrapped around the body. Go ahead and check one more time for fit and everything before I slather glue all over this thing. It looks like it fits just like it's supposed to, which is perfect. This is going to be very nice. I'm quite happy with the leather on this one. All right. Now I am going to just slather glue all over the inside of this and the outside of this, and I'm going to glue it all together. As soon as I find my glue. Make sure you can get it up on the glue or on the ribbon, but you don't want it so far up on the ribbon that it'll show on the outside of your finished project. Just kind of hold it by the zipper tab here so I can get glue all over it without getting glue all over me. Piece of something got on my brush there. I didn't want the rough spot up under the cover. All right. I'll lean this up against something. That should hold it, I think. While I slather glue all over this thing. Get it all the way out to the edge. You're going to need it. There's not a lot of margin for error where you're stitching to hit the corner and the zipper. Got to be pretty accurate with it. All right. I'm going to let that glue set up for a couple of minutes and then I'll come back to you. All right, here we go. This is definitely a difficult part of this. What I'm probably going to do is get half of this glued down and then undo the zipper so that I can pull the mold just slightly out through the top a little bit so that I can really scrunch it down around this bottom area here and get the other side down. All right. So, all that being said, wish me luck. I'd hate to waste a video on one that I screw up. Looking good so far. Again, I'm going to unzip this and pull that mold, or let that mold kind of push out a little bit as I wrap around this back side here. pull it up to the top. All right, there we have it. When sewing, this should all pull together pretty nicely. Okay, now another fun challenge is we have to put the zippered part inside of it. All right. I'm going to see here. The last two that I made, I went ahead and glued the whole thing totally in, and then started sewing. And it got to be quite the challenge when I got to some areas, because you couldn't open it all the way. I even had to take and heat up and bend a needle to have a curved needle to work with it. And I don't want to do that. I want to find an easier way. So I'm really thinking that I may glue it to one side and sew all the way around that, and then glue it to the other side, and then only one side of it's going to be kind of difficult. You know what I mean? So yeah, I need to figure out where I want to put it. The higher up that you put it, then the easier it's going to be to sew down into this corner here. But if you get it up too high, it won't look right and it won't close right. You'll have this giant gap in the bottom. So I am going to put it just a little bit. This part right here will be just maybe 1/4 of an inch above the T-pocket there. Okay. Just like right there. I know that's not the easiest thing to see and everything's in the way, but I think it'll be a good location for it. All right, so I need to glue the back of my gussets. I need to glue that part of the pocket there, and I'll do the exact same thing on the other side here, and then I will start sewing probably here and work my way around, all the way around to about there, and then we'll glue the other side in and continue on. So I have to glue the fronts of these pockets just a little bit. Careful not to get this glue into your zipper teeth. That will not be good. Again, this project is a little bit more challenging, I fully admit, but if you own some of our other templates, the conversation that's been had around here is, okay, we've taught some basics and we've got some stuff like that down. Now it's time to do some fancier work and improve our skill set. If you're not improving with every project and learning something new, then what are you doing? We'll let that set up just for a second, and then I'll glue it down. All right. Try to do this on camera as much as I can here. I'm going to kind of stretch this thing out as far as I can so that I can get it in there straight. There we we go. There's one side. And there is the other side. Now, poking our holes can be quite challenging. I suggest that you, if you've got a rubber poundo board or something like that, I've always used this thing right here, and it's just a sliver of rubber pad that I took off. I glued a real thick piece of skirting on the back of it that my awl would never, ever, 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 ever go through. And this is what I use on projects like this, where I can put it inside of it and go around it and poke my holes. One thing that will make it easier is take your zipper and flip it inside out on these top corners here. Okay, so it'll look like that. And I'll take and put this thing in here, and I'll just go around here punching holes. Now, some of these on this back side here, I won't be able to have anything behind them. I'll have to very carefully punch those one at a time. And I want to make sure that my gusset portion is underneath this. I don't want it on top of it because I don't want to accidentally stab my holes through it as well. So, other than that, you just go along poking some holes. It's not easy. It's not fun. And after all the work you've already done, it's quite, what's the word I'm trying to think of? It is, well, it's scary. That's what it is. Because you want to make sure you're going through all the layers that you need to. It's got to go through the zipper, and it's got to go through all that pockets on the inside. Okay, so you got to find that perfect little angle. It may not be straight up and down if you didn't get everything lined up. And you've got to be consistent with your stitches so that they don't look like crap on the inside. I'll do a few stitches and then I look and make sure I'm kind of on track in there. And then I keep going. And I will poke all the holes for one side, and then I'll sew it together, and then I'll poke all the holes for the other side. And so, well, we've got to attach the gusset to the other side first, but yeah. All right, so I'm going to pause the video because we're getting pretty lengthy here. It's going to take me forever to upload this thing. Here we go. All right, got that half of it all sewn up. And now it's time to glue the gussets to the other half. And I'm going to warn you, when you get down into this, when you're sewing up this corner right here, it's going to be real hard. And then the same over here on this corner. This one's not as bad because this is where the zipper is, and it's kind of keeping it from being open too far. Again, the last one I made, I had to take a needle and heat it up a little bit and burn it, or bend it so that it was curved and I could, you know, kind of go in and out with it. But the one before that, I didn't have to do that. So we'll see if we'll see where the consistency is. So anyway, yeah, that being said, all I have to do is glue this down in the same spot as it is on the other side. And then I'm going to continue poking my holes all the way around and sew it down. So there it is. We'll be back. All right, the main body of this thing is done. Sewed it up, got the zipper in and everything. Everything is good. Didn't miss any seams. The biggest problem I have is there's a little bit of a bubble in the zipper right here where I guess I just didn't get it nice and tight around the mold. Other than that, it looks pretty good. I really like how the colors came together. I just love that darker brown interior and then the tan outside. Again, we sewed a little D-ring on here on the end. So real quick, we'll just make a lanyard strap for it. I cut, this is a 1/2 inch wide, which is the size of our D-ring, and our little swivel snap that we have with our D-ring. And I'm just going to kind of figure out, you know, what would fit around the wrist type thing. I mean, unfortunately, my hands are not much to judge what a lady would carry. I've got pretty big hands. But but I figure it's probably better to have it a little bit big than a little bit small. So I rounded off that end of this little strap, and I'm just going to make a mark with my fingernail there, chop that end off. And we need to bevel and burnish both sides of this, so it'll be nice and smooth, and it won't, agitate or annoy anybody rubbing up against their skin. So, anytime you're doing a real thin strap like this, and you're trying to edge bevel it, take a ruler or something like that and put up against it, and that way it has something to go up against, and it'll bevel a lot better and a lot easier. Than if you're just trying to hold on to it and work it that way. So there's a little tidbit that it took me a long time to figure out. So hopefully that helps. So again, we're going to do both sides of the strap. And then the same goes for when you're burnishing. I have a lip on this desk behind me here where when I'm doing a belt or something, I'll set it down in that lip and burnish on it, and it'll go much faster than if I'm trying to hold it and just do an inch or two at a time. One more side. All right. And again, this whole step is very optional. The others that I made like this do not have a wristlet strap on them. Janie actually looked at me with a little bit of jealousy a while ago when I told her that I was making this one with one, because she already has the one with the surfer girl and it does not have one. But it's Mother's Day. Maybe I'll add one for her. Anyway, I'm going to burnish this. There's no reason to make this video any longer, so I'm going to pause it, and then we'll come back and I'll assemble this little wristlet, and we'll be done. All right, we are now burnished. So how I figure to do this is I'll put my little snap through there. I want to fold it over like that, and then I'm going to fold it over like that. And then I'm just going to put a few stitches across here and wrap the thread around it and everything. And that's how it'll set right there. So I've got to do some gluing to get it there. My glue's up here now. And so what we'll do is just put some glue on that side of that, that side of that, this side of this, and then on the inside of this tip down here. And all those layers will just stack right on top of each other and glue down. Just like that. All right. So I'm going to give that glue a few seconds to set up, and I'll be right back, and we're going to be done. All right, that glue is nice and settled, so I'm going to pinch these together here. There's those two. And then that one right there. And there's just enough room. I'm going to do 2 stitches across, but I'm going to wrap the thread all the way around all of them, just to make it all pretty and stuff. So I'm going to use the exact same thread I used on everything else. That way everything comes together and matches nicely. You can hand it to me. I think it's right down there. Left it in front of the horse. Is it on that box right there? Okay, find my thread. I swore I left it right there. What is it? All right. I swear we're going to get done with this. I know it's been a long video. Appreciate you hanging out. All right. I'll start on one side and I'll cross the needles over on the outside of it here. Go back through that same hole. I'll pull it really, really tight so it just really indents the leather there and everything. It'll look nice and clean. Probably going to need some pliers because I'm putting it through here several times. All right, and then we're already to the other side, so I'll wrap it around and I'll put it right back through those same holes a couple more times here. All right, I'll go back through that first hole one more time, both ways, and then I'll cut it off and it'll look great. All right, so now when we attach this to that, and there she be. Whole thing's nice and done. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I hope yours turned out really well too. I did a lot of thought before I put my maker's mark on there, and I put it on there right there, and I put it where it was, if you were holding it, you know, that it would be facing up so it could be read. I almost put it on there upside down, but anyway. All right, well, thank you very much for joining us. Again, I am Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply. If you have any questions about the video or anything that we did, please feel free to leave it in the comments, and I'm more than happy to try to help out and answer questions. Other than that, every product we used here you can find at makersleathersupply.com, and we really appreciate your support. Thank you very much. Have a great day.